Streaming live around the world, this is Paper Cuts with Brad and Jay.
I'm the one you love. I'm Jay. Thanks so much for stopping by. Over there's Brad. It's his show.
It's his show. That's why I'm the host, and we just love Jay.
Now you know it's all natural. I mean, nothing's rehearsed, right?
No, absolutely nothing is rehearsed on this show.
God, you just suck the life out of me. It just feels like
you've got a lot grayer since we started this.
I have. I know. I have.
From Butcher Cabin Books and writer of This Wretched Valley, welcome to the program, Jenny Kiefer. We are live.
Well, happy Friday to everyone. Happy cold, snowy, depending on what part of the country or world you're in. Snowy, cold, snowy. I hate it. I hate it.
It's everywhere except Florida.
I hate the snow. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Paper Cuts. Happy Friday night to you. I am Jay, the eye candy of the show. And with me, as usual, he lowered his ears a little. Bradford's with us, as always. That's why you had the hat on last week. You went too short, right?
Yeah, it's freezing my head.
And you just didn't want people to know about it.
No,
so
this is always what I do. It's just too cold. Too cold.
All right, we're going to hop into This Wretched Valley. With us this evening, Jenny Kiefer.
Mm-hmm.
And you book nerds out there who like to go to actual bookstores, those still exist. You may know Butcher Cabin Books, but she's also the writer of This Wretched Valley. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. What are you normally doing on a Friday night besides talking to two bozos with microphones?
Right now, I'm usually feeding the dogs.
So are they going hungry right now?
Oh, my spouse is doing it.
Okay, so you can stop and go feed them. We're pet friendly here.
No, they're covered. You would hear them if they weren't.
Right. You go hear mine, just so you know. You go hear mine. So.
Yeah, I'd be feeding the dogs and probably watching TV and trying to make myself get working on writing.
What's on Friday nights though on TV?
I just stream like Hulu.
Okay. Oh yeah.
See, does anybody ever? Nobody has cable anymore.
Yeah.
Normal showtimes.
Everything's streaming. Yeah.
So this just came out on Tuesday, and it's already in its at least second printing, right?
Yep. It went to the second printing the day after it released.
That's awesome. Were you expecting that to happen so quick?
No. I mean, I don't think anybody, and granted, I don't know like how many were in the first pressing, but yeah, it's gotten a lot of buzz, and it was an Indie Next pick, so I think that helped. Yeah, so hopefully it means that they printed a lot and they ran out of many copies.
Third printing coming soon, right?
Yeah. Third, fourth. Let's get it ready. So just give us a little, sales pitch, little nutshell. What are we going to find in this book?
Yeah. So This Wretched Valley was inspired by the Dyatlov Pass Incident, if people know about that. But it's about 4 hikers who go into the Kentucky wilderness. They think that they are going to find the next hot rock climbing spot, but they are actually being lured there by an evil, sentient piece of land in Kentucky.
Isn't all of Kentucky an evil piece of land?
It can be.
Okay.
Jay's from Ohio. Jay's from Ohio, so he doesn't.
That's just what I've been told.
Well, Ohio is worse.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you.
You have nothing to back that up with.
All those.
Well,
Ohio
we last year we drove from Louisville to Pittsburgh, and we had to go like pretty much through all of Ohio, and the trip was supposed to be 6 hours, but I'm pretty sure it took us like 5 days to get through Ohio.
Yeah, no, you can go down to the corner, and there's construction everywhere. It's just yeah. So
this one deals, like what you said, with rock climbing, and you're a bit of a rock climber yourself, or you used to be at least, right?
Yeah, I haven't done it. I haven't had time to do it like recently. But yeah, I've climbed. I mostly climb in gyms, but I have gone outside to Red River Gorge a number of times, pretty frequently. And I've been to, there's a small like bouldering area near me in Indiana called Muscatatuck that I've been to a few times. And I think the only other place I've climbed outdoors was like Chattanooga.
Okay. So did you draw a lot of experience from your own stuff to put in the book?
Yeah.
Or Dylan?
Yeah, I definitely all of the climbing scenes were sort of drawn from my experience, and also like watching. There's like a series of film called Real Rock that it's just like climbing mini films. So I watched a lot of those, and like Free Solo and stuff like that.
How many close calls have you had?
I don't think I've ever really had any close calls because I'm a very cautious climber. Like I said, I mostly climb in gyms where it's like more of a controlled environment.
I got you.
Goals a couple of times in the gym just from like falling weirdly on my ankle.
So you're not one of those like extreme
No.
rock mountain climbers who have no kind of parachute or hooks or anything that are just doing it with fingers.
The most extreme I've done is what's called lead climbing, a very easy route at Red River Gorge, where that's where like there's already bolts or like places to clip in on like permanently in the rock, but you're putting the gear up as you go. So I've done that on like really pretty, what people would say would be pretty easy routes. Like I think the ratings were like 5.6 or 5.7, which is I think the lowest rating I've ever seen is like 5.3.
I was going to
ask. And it goes up to like 5.14. So
is 5.14 the highest then?
I think once you get into like 10, it gets weird because they'll be like 5.10 plus, 5.10 minus.
Okay.
I think 5.14 or 5, maybe there's a 15 now. I don't know.
So I have a lot of. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, I mean, is that what got you into writing this actual book? Just your love of doing the actual climbing yourself? What made you tackle this subject?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of started with just an idea of like, how could I put rock climbing into a horror book, because they, they go together pretty well. Climbing can be a pretty dangerous and terrifying sport. So they seem to fit well together. And so I just was sort of pondering how I could put the two together. And then I started learning about the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and it sort of started to come more together as a complete story at that point.
So for those who don't know about the incident, because it might be new to me too. The name sounds familiar. We're just so for the other Jays out there, what's that incident we're talking about?
The Dyatlov Pass Incident it was in I think 1959 in Russia, where this group of experienced hikers went into the mountains there to do some research, and they sort of disappeared. And then in the spring, when everything thawed, their bodies were discovered in just really bizarre ways. I think one was missing his tongue. There were some that were naked down in some trees away from the tent. There was a couple like wearing the naked people's clothes going back to the tent, and the tent had been like cut from the inside. So it was just like a really strange scene that they found, and they didn't like, nobody really knew what happened.
I'm going to look that up now. That's
I heard
were there like
on,
movies and documentaries about this?
I don't know if there's any documentaries. There's like a couple of movies that tried to make some very wild reasons why it happened.
That's pretty cool. I mean, Paper Cuts, not only are we entertaining, but we are educational too.
I don't remember what is it called. Is there one? I think there might be one called like Devil's Pass or something.
I think so.
Yeah, and it just like goes off the rails into like this very bizarre explanation. It
does sound like very much Blair Witch vibes, because it's some of them were like burned up, and one of them had like bitten off its fingers and a bunch of weird stuff. There's a show, Expedition Unknown. They did like a 2-part episode about it, which was pretty cool.
Why have I not heard about that? So there's got to be other books and stuff about this, right?
There's one by a guy named Donnie Eichar, called Dead Mountain.
There's actually a movie called Devil's Pass about. Okay, well, I'll have to look it up now. I mean, probably not this weekend. There's a lot of big football games on this weekend, but I got to look it up now and figure out what's going on with this.
So what was it about this incident that, okay, that's cool, I can wrap my book around this and have it be inspired by that? What was it that was so interesting to you about it?
I think it's just like I think everybody is a little intrigued by unsolved mysteries. And I think this one just really caught my attention because the way that it was always told, like you always hear about this incident and they always like say like the hikers went into the mountain and this is how their bodies were found. And then usually the story will back up and say like, give you more context about the hikers and then like they'll get into theories usually. But I guess it was just like that, just how interesting the situation was of how their bodies were found and like the structure of how that incident is always discussed, and just as well as like, yeah, just like the unsolved mystery, and even just the fact that it happened I think now like over 50 years ago, and I think just within the past like maybe 5 years there was like a plausible theory, but just like that all that time has passed and they still don't like truly know what happened.
Do you have any theories about what caused all that?
Well, I think the working theory now is that it was like a partial avalanche. So I think the working theory is that there was like they put their tent on sort of like the mountainside at an angle, and they put all of their like heavy equipment like at the top of the like slope, and that the partial avalanche like pushed all of their heavy gear onto them, so that's why they had like all these crazy like bruises and bone fractures. But because it was like a partial avalanche, they didn't like at the time have like evidence. Like if it would have been a full avalanche, they would have like probably known about it in town or wherever it was, like at the base of the mountain. But because it was like just like a chunk of ice, and I think that theory came actually by using CGI from the movie Frozen 2. Had like such realistic snow that they used it to test out that theory.
That's crazy.
And then while they're testing it out, they broke into song, right?
Probably, yeah.
It's perfect.
I've seen that movie way more than I cared.
I've already seen Frozen 2 once. Actually, I have a video of me and the kids debating on what was better, Frozen 1 or Frozen 2. But we're totally off subject now. So, so as far as your book goes, how much information is in your book based on the actual facts we know, and how much did you take liberty with and change things around?
Well, the book is like not it's very much just inspired by it. There's nothing like, you don't need to know anything about the Dyatlov Pass incident to read the book. Yeah, there's nothing like actually in it about that incident. It's just more so inspired, like I said, by the way that the Dyatlov Pass incident is told. So like in my book, the first chapter opens with finding the characters' bodies in weird ways. Like one character has his rib cage opened like a picnic basket, and one character is cool, like just a bare bleached skeleton after 7 months, and one's missing his like eyes, tongues, and toes. One's just like gone entirely with no trace. So
yeah, the gore was pretty descriptive, which was like
it was really
cool, I thought so.
Yeah, I was just really grabbing onto that sort of unsolved mystery and that sort of unusual backwards structure of telling like how they were found. So pretty much what like the end goal or the end result of the characters, but so the book is more about like, well, how the hell did they get that way?
Right.
Yeah. Were you worried about starting the book off like that, like telling basically the end and then working back?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it definitely sort of felt like a risk when I was querying or getting to that point, because it's not a very usual structure. Like I think there's like a few books that do it. I think Alma Katsu's The Hunger does it, but that's based on like that is actually based on the Donner Party, and most people know the end result of that. And I think the Gregoire Courtois, or I don't know how to say his name, but The Law of the Skies does it sort of. It has like one sentence in the first page that's like, these kindergartners entered the woods and they would like never return. Like, so you know that they all die in that first sentence. And there's like a couple of other examples, but yeah, it's not like a very usual thing. So I was like kind of nervous to do it, but it felt right for the story. And I think ultimately it worked, and it's makes it stand out a little bit, I hope.
I think it's something that's used a lot of times in movies, but that's an easier platform for it because you're watching something, you're being entertained. I can see it be pretty challenging in a book like this, you know, because you're giving away the ending right away in a way. So, yeah,
I liked it. Because I was like, okay, well, what's the mystery now? How did this all occur? Like you were saying. So I liked it starting out. We know what happens, but it's more about the journey, about how we got there.
Yeah.
I think was Daniel Krause's book, The Ghost Eaters, or whatever it's called.
Clay's,
the burger shop
Clay
place.
Which one?
Oh, it's Daniel Krause's. It's about the haunted restaurant, like the McDonald's place. That one starts out like that.
Burger that
Ghost
ate
burger
us
or something. Yeah. That one starts out everyone's dead.
But I mean that's more on the
that's more like a mockumentary,
like a mockumentary way. So
her publishers didn't like the bleakness or bleak ending. Did you ever consider changing it? That's what Hamlin asked.
I think there was one publisher. I think it was Berkeley. There was an editor at Berkeley who wanted to buy it, and the acquisitions team said it's too bleak. But luckily, I did not have to do so. Usually, by that point, I already had an agent, and he was, the book was on sub, or it was being sent out to editors, and so at that point, luckily, I guess, but there was other editors that were interested, and we ultimately went with Quirk, and Quirk was fine with it, so I didn't have to consider changing it. Now, if like every editor came back and said that, then I might have considered changing some things, but ultimately I didn't have to make that decision, so I didn't even have to consider it.
You didn't get offended or anything, did you? Like,
I didn't get what?
Offended or anything with it?
No.
Because I always wonder sometimes when someone writes something and they send it out to an editor or to a publisher, whichever, and you start getting suggestions back, like if they ever get, well, no, this is my baby, this is the way it's going to be, how much back and forth, how much fighting there is, or if anybody ever gets offended by a suggestion or anything. So
I think it's not necessarily about being offended. I think it's just knowing like it is your book. So it's like, it is my book, and ultimately like I have the final say in what it looks like and what is in it. But I also think that like if you were going to pursue traditional publishing, at least, right. I think if you are totally not open to change at all, your best route is probably self-publishing, which is a fine route. But I wanted to go traditional. And I think if you are going to choose that route, then you have to sort of go in with the mindset that you are going to have to make some compromises and changes, because partially it is, not partially, but it is a business. Right. So the editors and the acquisitions team are maybe looking at it from a little different of a standpoint than you as the author or writer are. And so they might suggest some changes that they think would help you better market the book. And so I think it's all about finding an editor and a publisher who your vision aligns with. And ultimately, like, you don't have to say yes if you get an offer. So like if I got an offer and they, just wanted to completely change it, I don't have to say yes to that offer if I just really don't want to make those changes. But yeah, I think if you go traditional, you do have to consider that like there are going to be changes that you have to like make and accept to some degree, but it is a partnership.
And for me, I didn't think it was a bleak ending. I mean, maybe, but not where I would have wanted to change it to, hey, everyone's okay now and they all survived or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't get many books like that where almost or all the characters die at the end and just, it's not a good day at the end.
You didn't think it was bleak?
I mean, no. I don't know, because in my head I was picturing it. It very much reminded me. Once I got to a certain point, it's like this is like Evil Dead, and I don't know. Evil Dead's just kind of like fun, so I wasn't adding the bleakness to it for some reason. I don't know. Do you feel like maybe Evil Dead at all? I feel like the woods were alive, and then there's all this crazy stuff going on. So eventually, it's like, yeah, this is kind of like Evil Dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it would have been bleak if the dog didn't survive, but
there you go. Yeah,
as we know, the dog lives.
The dog lives.
I probably would have stopped. I mean, yeah.
I think it's funny you like made that a bold statement so everyone knows before they even read it. The dog lives, guys. It's okay. You can read it.
And I appreciate that because I've turned off movies before. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the first few minutes, I'm like,
the dog kind of like leaves the narrative like really quickly. So I didn't want people to like, and I have 2 dogs. I'm the same way. Like, I don't like it when dogs in media die. So it just became like a marketing thing. So like readers aren't focused on that the whole time. Like they don't have to worry about the dog. The dog survives.
When I went to go pick up my pre-order from the bookstore, your mom was showing me pictures of her dog, saying that the dog Slade was based off her dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the artwork I made based off of her dog.
Yeah.
It's like a very common breed for climbers for whatever reason.
Okay, that's interesting. With
So,
go ahead.
You go ahead. I jumped on you last time. Go ahead.
So with like at the beginning of it, without giving too much away, they're like Clay, a character. He's like searching for this new spot for people to climb with the LiDAR and stuff. So did you do much research about the LiDAR equipment and stuff like that, or just any of the more, I guess, technical aspects of it?
Yeah, I think most
into the book.
Yeah, that idea I stole from a friend of mine who we used to have a tradition. He moved away, but we used to have a tradition where every polling or every voting day, we would wake up early, we would vote, and then we would just drive out to Red River Gorge and spend the day climbing. And then by the time we like came home and had cell signal, like the results were already in. So we didn't have to like stress about it or like look at the results all day, or even if we tried to avoid them, sometimes like if you're, just on your phone or whatever, you'll see something. And during one of those trips, he mentioned that like he wanted to do that. He wanted to use LiDAR to try to find like undeveloped rock climbing spots. And so I asked him like, can I steal that for a book? And he's like, yeah. And so so I did do some research on LiDAR, but it was like really sort of like it doesn't play a huge role in the book. It's just more like the inciting incident to like get them to the woods.
Is that something that happens a lot? Like, do people discover new places to climb and stuff very often, or is that not very common?
Well, I think it's people wanting to get away from the elections.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So I feel like everything's like been explored by now a lot. So I feel like there wouldn't be, especially in like somewhere like Kentucky, like, there's this whole new big cliff face that's no one's seen before.
I think it would be honestly, if there's like anything new actually discovered, it would probably be on like private land, like just land that somebody owns and they don't really know like what they have. Yeah, they don't know like, all these rocks in the land that I own are good for climbing.
No Kentucky joke here. I mean, all jokes aside, is there a lot of uninhabited land in Kentucky? Is there a lot of areas where it's not developed into corporations?
This is all like the Daniel Boone National Forest kind of area, right?
Yeah, we have like the Daniel Boone National Forest, which was really big, and that's where Red River Gorge is. We have like Mammoth Cave National Park. I mean, there's like a lot of rural areas as well.
I just figured every piece of bare land eventually becomes a distillery or something.
I mean,
much,
yeah. You're not wrong.
We actually have parks and stuff here, Jay. I don't know about Ohio.
Do you really? We have a lot of natural. We have some parks. Yeah. There's some parks you don't want to go to, but we have other parks too.
We have parks next to the still or the warehouses where they store all the barrels, and then the trees get all that weird like black gunk all over them.
No,
Yeah.
they do. Yeah. Downtown
I don't
versus
know.
the story, and that's all over the buildings all the time. The black stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm picturing Kentucky just a lot of farmland. I don't know. I've
We don't
never
wear
been
shoes,
there.
Jay.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
don't have running
I'm a city
water.
boy, so that's like the fact that this whole the whole wilderness and survival horror and all that stuff, it makes me claustrophobic a little bit. Even though it's you have an open space of wilderness, I don't know why. It just feels like the trees are coming in at me, or the mountains or the rocks.
They are.
I'm a city boy, and then, like, I'm reading this, I'm like, I'm clenching my Kindle on a cracked screen or something like that. But like, it really came across deep. The setting was pretty horrific. So kudos to bringing that feeling that that the world's closing in on you. That's what we need when we're reading.
Yeah.
Especially with it looping over on itself all the time. Like, was that something? Was that idea of they can't get out? Let's go looping. Was that an idea you had going into it, or did that just kind of naturally happen along the way?
Yeah, I think there was like a lot of my process for like writing and working out plots. It usually does not come to me fully formed. So it is sort of like a process of like working out details. So like I said, it started with just this idea of like, how could I use rock climbing in a horror story? And then I had the LiDAR piece, and that sort of led me to the idea of like, well, what if they do find something, but it's not like really there, or like there's something off about it. And then I had like some specific images that I won't say because they're like kind of later. They ended up kind of like being pretty late in the book. Some like specific images for scenes, and then it sort of became the idea of like, well, what if it's just like a really old, like ancient evil that's just on this land, and then that spiraled into, well, if it's an ancient evil, it has surely come up before and lured other people there. So then that led to the like what I call historical interludes. Yeah.
Was that fun doing the historical interludes, these different time periods of people who might have come across this before?
Yeah, I love doing research. And I think the problem with those is that like I did a whole bunch of research and then they, they're like 2 or 3 pages each. So like I read a whole book on the Wilderness Road, and I think besides like a scene where a character, like a present character, like actually sort of sees some of that, that section was like 2 or 3 pages.
Oh, is that the trail? Is that the Wilderness Road? Okay.
So you have enough research to do a sequel.
Couple books.
I mean, if I felt someday I might write a Wilderness Road book that's like kind of in the same universe, but I don't know if I am. I don't want to say skilled, but I don't know if I have like the stamina to do a full historical novel.
Yeah.
I feel like that just takes a very high level of detail and research, and I think I would enjoy it, but I feel like it would also take me a very long time to do.
I could see additional valley stories with this, like different things happen to different people, like the Wretched Valley Part 2. This valley's still wretched, or something like that. It is just like a different set of people, and something different happens. Just better time.
Yeah, I mean, like I won't say never, but I'm not really typically a sequel or like person. I might write something in the same universe, but it would probably still be unconnected. I mean, I feel like with the way the characters end up in this one, it would almost have to be kind of like slightly standalone. But I mean, you could do something like influencers who've heard of these people, what happened to them, like they go in the woods and it repeats itself again.
Was it important for you? I mean, you're from Kentucky, but was it important for you to have the book set in Kentucky?
Yeah, I did want to set it in Kentucky, even if it was just like one of those like I sort of know the landscape here. It wasn't something that I felt like I had to do a ton of research on, just to get like the vibes of Kentucky. But yeah, I think I think a lot of writers do that, where they just like set their books in their home state.
Yeah, we need more horror set in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Is this your first official novel then?
Mm-hmm.
I know you have other writings and stuff. So with this being your
Yeah.
first one, did you reach out to any Kentucky authors for advice or anything, or did they give you any advice, or
Not
you ever talk
really.
to them? I mean, Laura Hightower's right there.
Yeah.
Hey.
I mean, I think I started this, I think like, you know, I started like probably late 2019 writing this. And yeah, I didn't really reach out to anyone. I was in like some like other writing communities. So I had like beta readers from there and stuff, but yeah, I didn't really didn't really reach out to anyone. I would have felt very awkward doing that.
So have you always been interested in horror? Like, why write a horror novel as opposed to, you know, historical fiction or sci-fi or whatever?
I think I have definitely always been interested in horror. You know, I had that, I've said it before, but I've had that typical pipeline that most people who like horror fiction have, where it's like scary stories to tell in the dark, to Goosebumps, to like the Fear Street, and on. And then when I was in high school and college, I was very pretentious, and I would only read like classics and wasn't had disdain for anything popular, which I've gotten over now. But when I was in that weird pretentious mode, I still gravitated towards like dark fiction, so like anti-war fiction or Southern Gothic sort of things. So I think I've just always been, and I've always loved Halloween. So I think I've just been like always drawn to it for whatever reason.
So those classics were like a gateway drug to
to
the horror world. Yeah.
So what made you? I mean, have you written like have you had short stories and stuff published elsewhere?
Yeah, I've had not a ton, but I've had a story called Palette. That's a medieval horror story. It's like a body. Okay. All of my short stories right now are body horror. And Palette was originally.
Body horror too.
You would never guess.
Never guess.
Palette was originally published in an anthology called Howls from the Dark Ages, and then it was done in audio by Pseudopod. And then I have a modern body horror story that is about the horrors of having to call IT. Like when your computer's not working in an office. And that one was called Your Call is Very Important to Us, and that was in Cosmic Horror Monthly. And then I just recently had a bad date body horror story called Sugar Steak, published in Fantasy and Science Fiction.
Okay. So the novel is sort of the next natural progression for you, short stories and novel. Okay.
Yeah.
You can really expand on the IT one, though. That could be like, did you restart it?
What was your question about that one?
We could really expand with the IT story. Have a whole series on that.
Oh,
IT
yeah.
horror.
Well, I mean, you know, that's one thing I like about writing and like horror specifically is that, like, you know, that one just came out of actually having to call IT and just being very frustrated. And then I'm like, well, I can channel that emotion into a weird story where a person who works in an office like melts into the office.
You always get the one that's like going to remote into your computer to fix whatever the issue is, but yet while they're doing it, they have to tell you the history of why this is happening. And we have it where I work. We have that person. I
feel like in my experience with calling IT, it's more that like objectively, I understand that they probably are talking to very technologically inept people all day who don't know like what a password is, you know, or whatever. But it's like my spouse he's like a computer engineer. So like I know more than the average person. And so sometimes when I have to call IT, it's frustrating because like there's this disconnect where they're like asking me all these troubleshooting steps, and I'm like, I know you have to ask me this, but like, yes, I've tried all of these things already.
Can we skip to step 15, please? We've already done everything else.
It's like when you call a cable company too, and if you're having internet issues, they're like, "Well, you got to reboot the modem." I've already done that like 6 times. So,
are the lights flashing? Like, yes, come on now.
Yeah. Damn it.
So, what is it about? You seem to be very much in tune with body horror. What is it about that you sort of drawn to?
I don't know. I guess I just like to write gross things.
Just like the gross stuff. So I won't say who. There's a character in this book that hurts their ankle and it swells up like a water balloon, and I so wanted it to pop the entire time. I don't know if that's gross or not, but I wanted that big swollen ankle to pop and just have pus go everywhere.
I'm kind of surprised I didn't go there, but
well, they didn't end up too well in the end anyway. So
yeah.
So the gore and body horror that we got in this book, is that the way you intended it, or did you have to pull back every now and then just so you wouldn't make it into that extreme area?
Extreme horror.
Yeah,
I don't think that like I ever really go like that extreme, but I guess to me I consider extreme like I guess I consider that more like topics like sexual assault and sort of stuff like that, but which I would personally never write. Those are like things that I don't like reading either. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about like describing weird things happening to your body that aren't supposed to be happening that I don't know, just like are fun to write.
There's an eyeball scene in here where flies were trying to get under a character's eyelid. I was like, I can't do this.
I know you love your eyeball horror.
I didn't like that one at all. That was like the only thing in the entire book that like made me twitch a little bit.
Wait until you read the early copies of my short story collection. I got one there just for you.
Just purposely, yeah. Appreciate that, Jay.
Just for you.
So was there any point like throughout the book, like, okay, we did this gross body horror thing, so now I gotta one up myself in this next chapter? Did you ever feel that at all, or?
No, I didn't really think about it as like one upping. I think with a novel, I was more so trying to think of like the characters' progression and like what would these characters, how would they react to this new thing happening, or how would they what would they do in this situation, and how are they like interacting with each other? Because besides like, it's like almost like there's like two pairs. So like, or they're kind of like know each other via pairs. So like there's two graduate students who are in the same program, Clay and Sylvia. So like they know each other through school. And then there's the climber, Dylan, who knows Clay from like when they used to go climbing. And then there's Luke, who's Dylan's boyfriend. But like Luke doesn't really know Clay or Sylvia very well. Sylvia doesn't know Dylan or Luke very well. So there's all these like character dynamics in there, as well as like just being in this really insane situation.
With all the, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away, but with all the supernatural stuff that goes on, did you have a lot of fun writing that?
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to go that route.
Oh, really?
At the beginning. But yeah, I don't know. I guess when the Wilderness Road part starts happening, like I wasn't expecting to go there, but I really enjoyed all that. And then you have like the little interludes, and that all plays into the supernatural part of it.
Yeah. So like I said, when I was thinking about this place that they end up going to as sort of like an ancient evil that's done this before, then I sort of started thinking about like how like since the place is kind of like weird, it can like trap people, and it just has this really weird, it's sort of almost like the timelines just start stacking on top of each other. And that just made it really fun to think about like the current characters can encounter like basically the ghosts of the sites past, like Christmas.
The ghosts of Christmas past. So correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm usually wrong, so probably not right about this. But did you pitch this on PitMad?
I think I did on PitMad, but I found my agent after Pitch Wars, which I think they were connected. But Pitch Wars was a mentoring program, and sadly it has ended. I think I was like in the last group to do it, but basically it was almost like querying. You look at their mentors, you pick like 4 mentors that you want to submit to, and then you submit like basically a query and the first chapter. And if they like it, they'll request the full thing. And then if they choose you, they will mentor you for a couple months, and you do like a really heavy developmental edit with them. And then at the end, there was an agent showcase where you posted like the title and like a little pitch, and then like I think like 250 words of the first of, I guess you could have done whatever part of the book you wanted, but we did the first chapter, and I got my agent after that. I think I did PitMad a couple times, and I would always get like a really good response. But I never got any offers until after Pitch Wars.
Who was your mentors? Who were your
Cynthia Pelayo. Yeah, so she's like probably the most generous writer, I think, in the horror community that I've encountered. And I feel like everyone is already very generous, but I don't know how she does all the stuff that she does.
Everyone's very generous in the horror community, and it's funny because it's horror. And you don't expect that. It's like the biker gang of literature, you know.
Exactly.
But biker gangs are nice too. So, yeah. So what's the I'm sorry, Brad. What's the overall reaction? Not just like Amazon reviews and Goodreads reviews, but did you send this out to other people to get any kind of reactions? And what are those reactions so far?
Well, I don't personally seek out reviews. Like, I don't look at Goodreads. I don't read reviews. I feel like at least on Goodreads and stuff, like those reviews aren't for me. They're for other readers. And I just probably won't gain anything by reading them. But I think it has everything that I have come across, besides like one thing that I just happened upon, like this person didn't tag me or anything. I think everything has been very positive, and it seems like people are really responding to it. And I know that like it's impossible for for every single person to like the same book, but so far it has seemed to be mostly positive reactions, which is nice.
I mean, it's already on its second printing, so people are buying it. So that's good.
Apparently.
Yeah, I always tell people you don't have to read it; you just have to buy it.
Have to buy it, yeah.
And then one day, maybe get to it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what you do with it after you buy it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask back to the mentor thing. Do you feel like you gained a lot of knowledge and stuff through the mentorship program with Cena and everything? Like, was that very?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that really like pushed it over the edge into getting like an offer of representation, because before like I was getting a lot of full requests from agents, but they were all ending in rejection. So that kind of like, that's one of the reasons why I applied for Pitch Wars, because I was like, I feel like it has a lot of potential. Something at least like the first pages are resonating with a lot of agents, but there's something off about it. And the big thing that we worked on, so I don't know if you've read The Ruins by Scott Smith.
Yeah, I read that I think last year, I think.
Yeah, but so originally the book, Wretched Valley, was structured more like that book, where I did still have chapters. It wasn't just like one long chunk like that, but it was, each chapter was like split into each chapter had all points of view with like scene with like a break on the page to differentiate between the points of view. And so one of the biggest things that we did was we moved it so that there's just one point of view per chapter, which I think is like a little easier to get through. I think it makes the story like flow better ultimately, because you're not like, even though there is that like visible thing on the page, you're not like really head hopping as much or like jumping back and forth. You can like stay with one character in the scene. And I think that was like one of the bigger challenges with the edit that we did, because I had to like rearrange some things. I had to really figure out like, well, whose perspective does this scene need to be in and why? And I also think that helped again with the flow of the story, because it was sort of making that choice more intentional, as opposed to like free for all where I can just, switch between all the characters whenever I want. It made it like more intentional. And then the other thing that we really worked on was like the character emotions. So I think that's definitely one of the writing pieces that I'm still working on, is really adding in character emotions. And I think also learning that sometimes, like if you have ever gotten any writing advice, I'm surely you've heard show, don't tell. And I have my undergrad degree was in creative writing. And I think that was just sort of like pounded into my head a little bit too much, to the point where I really kind of needed to learn that like sometimes you do have to just tell. Like you don't always have to go into this big lengthy description of like showing. And then especially with emotions, sometimes it can be difficult because what I would put on the page, and to me, like the action would read as like anger, for example, like somebody else might read it as a different emotion. So yeah, sometimes you just have to say like, you have to put the word anger in the text and it's going to be okay.
So really not much of the actual story itself changed, more just the restructuring of it through the mentor.
Yeah, and that's been pretty interesting. And I don't know if it's like like all the pre-writing, because I have a pretty long like pre-writing process, but I don't know if it's that. But throughout the whole editing process, even like after Quirk acquired it, there haven't been any like huge changes to the plot. It's mostly just been like those sort of things, like amping up the emotions or switching things around a little bit.
How much did you plan out before you started writing it? And then how long did it actually take to write it from beginning to end? Once you got started?
It does feel like it was quite a while ago, but basically my process is that I use there's a website, like a blog post called by an author named AZ Louise, that she calls how to outline. It's like the goblin method of kind of outlining a book, I think. And I really liked that. I use that a lot when I'm starting a project. And basically she has like, it's like a mix of a few methods, but so she basically, you start with like a 1-sentence pitch, and then you expand that into a paragraph, and then you expand that almost into a synopsis. And then she has a really good like delineation that I like to use when she has like, I think for her, she does like 40 chapters, but she'll do like chapter 5 is where the inciting incident comes in. And so I like to sort of just copy that and fill in like the big major plot points, and then sort of go back and figure out, okay, like, well, how did they get from point A to point B? Like what's going to happen to get them there? And then I do, so this is like all very long. And then I do what I call a zero draft, which is where I'm just sort of like, it's like a very long synopsis where I'm just typing out what happens in the scenes without worrying about like grammar or dialogue or style. And then I will take that and sort of flesh it out into like a first draft. And so that, the zero draft actually goes pretty fast because I'm not like I'm just thinking about the story. I'm not thinking about like grammar or worrying about anything. But yeah, like I said, I think I started working on it in like late 2019, and now it's 2024 being published. So like 5 years, and that's considered fast for publishing.
Yeah. Of all the people we've interviewed, that is the most formatted, structured, organized way that everyone's told us.
Well, you think that unless you saw like the documents,
right?
The
but I mean,
writing document is very messy.
It's like you had a plan, like the outlining plan of it. But we've talked to some where they're like, "Oh no, I just make it up as I go along,"
Yeah, if I do that,
others
I'll
are like,
just be
Post-its and stuff like that, old school. But like, no, using programs and all of that. That's
yeah. I mean, if I try, I think that's called like pantsing. And if I tried to do that, I'd just be staring at a blank page all day.
Yeah.
So the people that pants, they're like, oh, I don't know what the characters are going to do. They just tell me. Like, that just boggles my mind. I don't see how people do that.
Me either.
I can see like a mixture of the two. Plotting, was it plotting and pantsing? Is that what? Or
yeah,
I think
they
so,
call
yeah.
it pantsing.
Yeah, I can see a mixture of the two. I mean, because if you get into something and then you realize you're into it a certain way, then you can make a change on the fly. But
I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, I definitely think there are things that, like come up and will tweak the outline, like as I'm doing that zero draft, or like doing free writing, where I'm just sort of typing, and maybe that's my version of pantsing, is just like that zero draft. But like the fly scene that you mentioned, like that actually occurred like as that came into being, just like as I was like drafting. That was like not in the outline or like really part of it originally.
See, that's a terrible scene.
Brad loves those ice
terrible
scenes.
For me.
Yeah, he loves those ice scenes.
So like all the violent scenes and all the body horror, like did you plan a lot of those out? Like this is going to happen to such character, or did you make up a lot of those as it went
I think
along?
like I definitely had a lot of it was in the outline. I think like, and some of it was just like, this character is going to die here, and that's like the midpoint of the book. But I maybe at like the outlining stage wasn't really sure like how that would happen. But so yeah, it just sort of like coalesces, like it's sort of like a stew where I have all these pieces in there, and then they just eventually gel together and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, since you do have at the beginning, we know the fate of everybody except for Dylan. Dylan's missing. We don't know what happens to her. Did you start out at the beginning? Like when you wrote it, did you write chapter 1 first, or did you start later on and you come back to chapter 1?
Yeah, well, actually, the first chapter, and I don't think this will ever in my life happen again. The first chapter is like the only time ever where like the words just like came to me, and I like, it was 3:00 in the morning, and I woke up and just like it just started coming, and I like had to make myself get out of bed, and like I was typing it into my phone in the bathroom, and like, so a lot of it has, like, some of it has changed, but like that first sentence, what baffled them was the skeleton, like that never changed from that. Like, I should go see if I can like dig up that very first, like, middle of the night, like typing into my phone thing and see how much of it has.
I wish authors would do that sometimes when they release something, and maybe have a special edition that shows some of their notes and some of the craziness stuff. Yeah, because I always get like, out of that stuff.
There is a lot that like never changed from just like that weird moment of inspiration. Like I said, I don't think that will ever happen again. But it was a weird kind of surreal moment when it did happen.
Yeah. So was that the genesis of the book? That one moment?
Yeah, that was like the first chapter, and I think that might have been like the first piece of it that like I actually drafted.
Okay. Because I've been asking the last few guests, if they sort of craft and work on like the opening line to hook people in. So it sounds like you just it just came to you all of a sudden.
For this one, it did just come to me. I think for the next one, I'll have to like maybe work on it a little bit more.
Well, how's the beginning? As Plow says, what like the first part is like about skeleton, right? Or
yeah,
okay, yeah. So I mean that's a nice hook to grab you,
because you're like, well, what about the skeleton?
Where does the skeleton come from? Who is the skeleton? Is it a full skeleton? Is it missing something?
I always think it's interesting, like the opening line for authors. Like some people like, no, just first thing I wrote, that's what it was, and some people they take a while to craft it and try to draw the readers in. So I always think that's interesting. The process.
Yeah, I almost think it's like, I think the first sentence is almost like more important in a short story than like a novel, because you just have so much less space to like get people's attention or to like tell the story in a short story. Whereas like in a novel, it's like you do still want to grab their attention, but maybe it occurs like over the first page and not necessarily like the very first sentence.
Yeah.
So you're working on what, 5 or 6 other projects right now, or
I'm working on book 2, which hasn't been announced yet, so I don't know how publicly I can really speak on it.
Wait, is that breaking news? Did we just break some? Okay, people knew about you're working on it. Okay.
Is it also set in Kentucky? Can you say, is it in Kentucky too? Or I think you told me, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's set in Kentucky still, and it is going to be with Quirk again.
Nice. I think Andreas has a question, or he's just saying. says happy release day.
Going to book club
looking for
February. Cool.
Part of a book club in February. That's cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool to hear that there's. I think there's like another book club run by a book shop in Oregon that's doing it in April. So like that's fun to know that people want to read it in a group. I don't know. I've been it's been very nice, but also kind of like weird and surreal that like because I've been working on it for what feels like forever. Like I said, 5 years in publishing, in traditional publishing, is quick relatively, but it does feel like it's been a really long time. So it's been a very like kind of surreal week to be like, oh, it's actually here and on bookshelves, and not just like my store. It's like in Barnes and Noble, and they're like putting it out early, and just sort of like coming across. I guess like to me the coolest thing is just like people who don't know me at all are like interested and excited about the book.
Yeah. Can we talk about your store a little bit before we get out of here?
Real quick, I want to mention the pre-order stuff since the book just came out. You went like all out for the pre-order if you ordered it from your store. You had like art prints and T-shirt. I've got the T-shirt on. You can't read it, but was that fun creating all these art pieces and stuff for the pre-order and everything?
I, like many people with ADHD, I have like 5 billion hobbies. And honestly, it was kind of like a thing where it was like, I really want to learn, or I really want to try out like linocut prints. And then it was like, well, if I do them as like a pre-order campaign, I can write it off on my taxes for all the expenses. So yeah, it was partially like, that was part of the incentive, but also it was like just wanting to create something like sort of unique to get people interested in ordering it. And Quirk did the carabiner and the sticker, and I think I made like 3 art prints, and then I designed the T-shirt, and then a local printer he printed the T-shirts.
And you put this cool, I guess it's a stamp or whatever in there, like the carabiner, but it's a skeleton.
Oh yeah, and I carved that stamp.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
That I used to stamp the books, but that stamp will only be on books ordered from my bookstore, or like if I am like at a live event, I'll use it. But like on Tuesday, I went into like the other local bookstore in like Barnes and Noble in Louisville and signed books, but I didn't use the stamp. So
just take your stamp in there, just be stamping everything.
I'll sign other people's
just one.
books.
If they have like 5 on the shelf, just do one.
Yeah,
it's like the
extra
really
special,
Wonka golden ticket. It's what it is.
And we're having a launch party tomorrow at Awry Brewing in Louisville, and so we will have some of the, like, if people didn't get the pre-order, we have a few T-shirts and like art prints for sale.
Nice. So let's talk about your bookstore. So Butcher Cabin Books, and it's been around for the year anniversary in October, right?
Yep.
So what made you want to open a bookstore in the age of everybody buying everything on Amazon?
In this economy, what made you find?
Well, it was a mixture of just, like really loving bookstores and books and just luck, honestly. In that my parents own the building that the bookstore is in.
That helps.
And so it honestly, like if we didn't have that piece, it probably wouldn't have really come together. It probably would have been like a thing where it's like, oh, that sounds like a really fun, cool idea, but it's like way too many steps. I don't even know like where to start with like commercial real estate. But so it was sort of like a thing where I lucked out, or like we lucked out because my parents owned the building, and they were kind of like loosely looking for a tenant because what my dad's business, Curry Sound, was in there, and it's been there since like the late 60s or early 70s. And like the building, that business has been passed down like from the person who started Curry Sound to my grandfather to my dad. So that's all been passed down, and but he didn't have any walk-in customers. He just did like bookkeeping there. So they were kind of like looking for a tenant very loosely. And so then my mom and I decided like, well, let's try to open a bookstore in the front space. And because, because they own the building and because we were able to do the renovations ourselves, which honestly we didn't have to do that much renovation. I think like we tore down, there was like an office in the space. So we had to tear down a couple walls and we like installed new flooring. But we, like the wood paneling that's there was there when we got the space. So it was more like it's horror vibes already because cabins are like a big horror thing. And we don't have to put drywall up or paint, which was a big bonus because I've hung drywall and I don't like doing it. But so like we had all of these factors that worked in our favor that most people don't have, that all just work together. And even down to like the street that it's on is very like horror centric. And again, all of that was just luck because they happened to own a building on a street that was up and coming, that was like ripe for a good location for this venture. And because of all those factors, we were able to sort of start it with, like our own money without having to get a loan. So we had pretty low startup costs, which again, most people won't have. But because of that, we were able to like sort of just try it out and say like, well, maybe it'll fail, but like at most we're out this like money that we put into it.
Right.
But we've had a really good reception to it. I think people are, and it's been interesting because I think it has spawned other horror bookstores in the country. And now there's also like a romance bookstore in Louisville. So,
But
I hope it works out for everyone.
It's pretty cool. It's almost like a dream scenario that younger when I was younger, I wanted to own a record shop. But I mean, I never had a building or anything. I mean, you got kind of, beat the game at itself, because you had the building and you had
sometimes we will have people like message us and say, I want to open this or like a horror bookstore in my city. And I'm like, I'm very happy to answer any question, but I'm always honest with them. And like, I had all these factors that you probably don't have. And usually they don't respond after that. And I feel kind of bad, but I'm like, I'm not going to lie to you and make it seem like it was like, super easy to do. But like, we have these various factors that most people don't have. And that's just the fact of it.
So do you think the reception in Louisville has been pretty good? Because I remember opening weekend, they were like lined up down the block. Around the
the opening weekend was crazy. The first day there was like a line wrapped around the block. And I think some people waited like 3 hours to get in because we're very tiny. We're like 400 square feet.
It's literally a little cabin.
Yeah. So we had to like get my brother to play a doorman. And so like he was like, as 2 people exited, he was like letting 2 more people in. Luckily, the weather was very nice that day.
Too, so. I can't remember if I came opening day. I know I came opening weekend, but I can't remember if it was the first day or not.
I think like once we hit like 3 or 4 o'clock, I don't think there was a line anymore. And like, I don't think it was still like very busy and steady that whole weekend. But I think like the line, it still lasted like 4 hours, which is impressive, I think. But
were you expecting the turnout that you all got?
I was not. That was very crazy. But I think it was like we painted the front of the building in August, and I posted it on Twitter just thinking like I knew some like friends and like some horror authors at that point, who I thought might be interested in seeing it, and it sort of exploded, and I think that's why. And then we were like on a whole bunch of news channels and stuff, and I think I was on NPR about the bookstore around that time.
If you drive past, you won't miss it with all the blood dripping down on the outside.
You ever get the
has it been pretty consistent over the course of the year?
I mean, like I think like any business, we've had like some low days where we don't have very many sales, but then the next day we have a whole bunch of sales. So it's like kind of I think that's with any small business. There's like this ebb and flow, and you just have to kind of like go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get any kind of customers complaining that it's just horror? Or or do you ever?
I don't think we've ever had anyone complain, but we have had people like walk in and kind of look around. And they're like, "What is this?" And we say like, "Oh, it's a horror bookstore," and then they walk back out, and like that's fine. It's not.
That's what I'm thinking.
Not going to be for everyone, but
like the little old church lady just thinking it's a bookstore, walking in getting freaked out with some stuff.
Well, we did have one person who came in asking if we had like Bibles or something, and I was like, "No, we're a horror bookstore. We don't have Bibles."
What kind of
she
Bibles
was like,
are we talking about?
And then walked out. I think the only reactions we've had was like, I'm sure there's probably more on Twitter, but we did have one person on Twitter who like quote tweeted and said something like, "Great, now Satan's at the corner" or something. And we just like took that and I screenshotted that tweet and made postcards out of it. Like, and somebody, one of my friends made it into an embroidery that we hang in the store. So
the one asking for a Bible, you should have just gave them, we have this Todd Kiesling book here. And just
Devil's Creek.
Give Devil's Creek and let them go with that. It's a new age Bible.
You would know by the facade of the building that it's not just your typical bookstore.
Yeah.
You would think, we're talking about, never mind.
So what's been your favorite part of having a bookstore where you can stock, whatever you want to?
I mean, I think it's been cool to see like people will travel to the store, and like we've had people come in and say like, I based my whole vacation to go to Louisville just to come to your store, and I'm always like, that's really cool, but also I hope it's not disappointing because it's really tiny.
A lot of pressure on you now.
I know. It's like I'm very excited that you were so excited about my store that you like planned a whole vacation around it. But I'm also like, I hope it's not disappointing.
They should have told you
like
that
a lot
of
effort and work. But
if they would have told you that ahead of time, you could have probably got like a handful of authors to be there.
Yeah.
So have you enjoyed doing the author events that you've done too? Has that been pretty fun?
Yeah, they've been fun. I think this year we're trying to work on expanding into like the other portion of the building a little bit. But we that's going to be slow going because like I'm writing a second book and have a day job on top of the bookstore and a book tour and everything. And like my business partner is very similar. So we're very busy people. So we're trying to figure out how we can balance everything so that we can like have more space for events and for just more stock, maybe expand into like fantasy and sci-fi, or I don't know. No. We might put out like a survey, be like, if we had more space, what would you want to see? Because right now it feels like we're stuffed to the brim in the current space, but like we don't need, because basically like we would be doubling the space. And so, or we could double the space. And right now it feels like we don't need double the space. We need just like a little bit more space.
Maybe got a good sci-fi, no fantasy.
No fantasy. Jay wants that space erotica in there. Is what he wants.
Space erotica is different. But if you add fantasy, then you're going to be writing a story about the horrors of owning a horror bookstore. And then we're just jumping down a rabbit hole. Okay, so
well, we could have the space erotica like when you used to go into like old video stores,
in the
like
back, the back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you've got everything. You've got stuff for everybody. So you've got like the paperbacks from hell. You've got YA middle grade, and then the normal the adult books.
Yeah, we have nonfiction.
The best thing is the Nicolas Cage poster in the back. That cracks me up every single time.
What's the Nicolas Cage poster?
It's an old library ad where he's like holding a book and it says like read, but he's like in a weirdly like almost seductive really pose. He's like I don't know.
He's just Nicolas Cage too. So
he of all people telling you to read, he probably can't read himself.
He could read, Jay. He's a great actor.
To read all those scripts.
There you go.
Nice.
So
this is available now, and you want to get it from Butcher Kevin Books, so you can get the cool stamp on the inside if you order it online.
Do you have a whole? Do you have like a whole display for your books?
Well, my mom tried to, and I was like, I feel weird about that.
Are you
So
gonna have
like
people
right
coming in
now
and
when
out?
you like
Yeah.
walk in the store, we have like these two things in the center, and the first thing you see is like our Paperbacks from Hell collection. And then we have like, you know, you can go around the store, but like my mom had like taken all of the Paperbacks from Hell off and like put my book on there, and I was just like, I'm glad that you're proud of me, but this feels really weird to me.
See, Nate, you need a cardboard cutout of yourself standing in the front, and you put, you know, the books on the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to say read.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make
we'll
your
have
own
like
poster.
a word bubble that says read.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome, I think. So, yeah.
I would stack them as high as I could. Put your book right in the front.
Right now they're like, so we have like 20 copies that we like are saving for the event tomorrow, and then like we had I think like 22 or 23 copies after the pre-orders that we like put out on the shelf, and like it's like they've just slowly been, I think at the end of the day when I left we had like maybe 7 or 8 left on the shelf.
So when people come in and buy it, do they know that you're the author, that they're buying it from you, or are people clueless?
So far people have been pretty clueless. I feel like most of the orders from the store have been like for shipping. But there have been like I think yesterday there was like a few people that came in and bought it, and I was like, what's your name? Do you want it like personalized? And they were like, what?
Yeah. You can mess with them like, I wonder what this one's about. Once you read it, come back and tell me. I haven't read it yet. So
yeah, you should just sign every one and just have them not tell them it's yours though. They're like, what are you doing? What are you writing the book for?
Well, I think I flat signed the ones that were like left in the store at the end of the day, in case like somebody bought one like while my mom's working. And you know, like for each one you can like, if you go there tomorrow, you can like pick your favorite one, because I put like dear reader, to whom it may concern, like I wrote a different thing for each like personalization.
Nice. So you said you're going on a book tour. Where all are you going on tour at?
It's right now it's pretty small, but it will be on the 29th of this month. I'll be at WKU in Bowling Green, doing an event there in Cherry Hall at 7. And then I have to look it up. I'll be in Lexington and Cincinnati, I think on the 6th and 7th of February. And then Chicago on the 15th. And then I'll be at the Scarelastic Book Fair on March 3rd.
Yeah, I think Joseph Beth was February 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
In Lexington.
The Lexington and Cincinnati ones are both at Joseph Beth. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know there was another. I thought that was only in Lexington. Okay.
Lexington is the 6th at 7 at Joseph Beth, and then the 7th is Cincinnati at the Joseph Beth in Cincinnati.
Jay, you can come down to the Cincinnati one. Come to Kentucky.
Come to Kentucky. You guys have Kentucky. Yeah. Yeah. So the name of the book is This Wretched Valley, and the writer is Jenny Kiefer. Why should people pick this up before we get out of here? Give us now. You give us your big sales pitch.
Because you should be nice and buy it.
There you go. That's it.
It's because the dog lives, and if you're a dog fan, the dog doesn't die. Slade lives.
Yes, he does. You gotta buy it to know what happened to all those characters.
You do. They're all dead, maybe, but you have to find out what happened to them. Maybe Dylan's still there. We don't know. You gotta,
everyone needs to call the hotline number, which is on the sticker.
Here, everyone can see. I don't know.
502-755-6381.
Was that fun doing all that stuff? Because you did like a news report kind of video and the hotline thing.
Yeah, Quirk has been really good because like I had these like crazy ideas where I was like, I want to set up like a number, like an actual number that people can call, and like it'll have something about the book, and like I want to do these like fake news reports to like sort of do like some sort of Blair Witch marketing. and they've just been on board. They just like, I mean, like I had friends help me record the hotline, and I edited it. And then I had a friend who played like the newscaster, and I wrote the scripts for the newscast, and I wrote the scripts for the hotline. And yeah, so Quirk edited the newscast, and I think they've released one, but there's more that will be coming.
Okay.
And so, like, if you really want to, you can try to get other people to call the hotline number.
Well, I think
I like all like the guerrilla marketing. I think is really cool.
Yeah, I think at least 3 or 4 people in the chat have added it to their TBR.
Yeah, so you can also just go to your library and get it too. That's always a good option.
Awesome. Well, we can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day to join 2 dopes with microphones here to talk about your new book and your bookstore and all the stuff, living the dream, owning an actual business where you are having fun and all that stuff. So thanks so much. Yeah. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Everyone in the chat, thanks for stopping by. And of course, people watching this later, the book is This Wretched Valley. Jenny Kiefer's the author. And if it's
got raised lettering on it. It feels good.
Fancy.
Yeah. They did, I forget what that's called, embossing. They did an embossing. So it's kind of like old school, like horror, like those paperbacks from hell would always be embossed.
The little climber, she's embossed too. You can little texture on her. I really love the cover. The cover's awesome.
They did a really good job.
She's hanging from the nose.
She is.
Yeah.
That might be a scene in the book. Maybe you gotta read it, find out.
Maybe.
A
little
maybe she lives, maybe
here.
she dies. I don't know. You gotta read the book and find out. It's fun. Very much.
Did you say maybe she dies? We just talked about how the ending is in the
beginning. No.
Hey,
Dylan's missing. We don't know.
We're trying to pull him in. We're trying to pull him in. All right, that's it.
I think if you like Evil Dead, you'll like it. It's very much reminded me of Evil Dead once we're getting towards the end. It's a lot of fun. It's wild and just crazy at the end too.
Oh, did you put the number in the chat? Okay, cool.
Yeah, numbers in the chat if everyone wants to call it.
All right. Thanks everyone in the chat for joining us. We appreciate it. That's a wrap. Pick up the book, enjoy it, and talk about it. Until we meet again, everyone.
Get it to its third printing.
Yes. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I know, Brad.